Well, hi everyone, and welcome to Thursday Night Saws. I'm Tim Ard, and glad you can be with us tonight. We're just kind of open mic tonight, talking through and thinking through and answering questions about chainsaws. So if you have any questions whatsoever, you can send them in. I'm just gonna kind of hang out, see what's happening. Give you a little bit of update of some of our activities over the past few days. We're home now this week, but I've been working this week with Georgia DOT. It started last week. We had some weather issues and a little bit of issues as far as the site, and had some rearrangements on Virginia. So I we did the other 2 days of the program with Georgia DOT this week. So we had a nice site down near Marietta, Georgia, and had 12 folks in the program. These are not real chainsaw operators per se. There was 3 or 4 of them that had used saws a good bit, but most was situations of they are supervising new employees and also older employees that may have to use chainsaws on different storm cleanup and roadside type of work. And so they wanted to send them through. We're calling it a coach's class or advanced chainsaw. And more or less, we talked a lot about the techniques, but then we also looked at being able to pass the information along to their employees. So it went very, very well. Finished that up, and it went super. And then we been, I guess, yesterday and today been working on several videos, and I've been trying to do a little bit of rearranging on a shorter version of the pole saw training, and then been also looking at one I just finished on Hangers Happen, and so I've got that to post this weekend. I've got also the working with the lean video that came out, done another short version of that, and kind of condensed down some of that information. And then we've just finished up bore cut basics, and it's just a real short video talking about how the bore cut works, a plunge cut some people call it, and a little bit of the basics of that and how to start approaching it to be able to use it in the planning and the techniques processes. Got some news on the Hexa chain. I finished I call it slow motion video on it to kind of show how smooth it is, and a little bit on the sharpening week before last, I guess. And this week I got a message from the local dealer here. Said the files haven't come in yet. She does have several loops that are available, different sizes. Those came in, but the files have not showed yet. But she did get some of the grinder wheels to go on the steel. I guess it's the USG grinder. Not quite certain what the center hole is on those, so I don't know what other grinders that it would fit. But I put a Instagram picture up as far as what it looks like. It's just more or less a standard wheel for 7/32 chain with a special edge on it. So, but they did make those available this week. So that's kind of the progress. We're got kind of a little meeting to go to up in Ohio. I'm going with Laura up there, and so we're doing the National Plexus Convention, and it's always good to have a bunch of good speakers and get to see some people that we've met over the years and all of her work with that. And so we're gonna head that way next week, and I think we'll get back in Friday, and then Sunday or Saturday we get back in, and then Sunday we are heading up to Elizabethtown, Kentucky. We'll be working with the Kentucky LTAP all the following week. So we've got several, I think 2 different workshops there. So looking forward to that. But anyhow, that's kind of the updates. I'm working on another short video that I'm putting together. I did do another one on limiting splits and pulls, which was kind of off of the working with lean video that I put together. But kind of emphasized a little bit more on how the techniques work with the different pulled fiber and possible splits. And then I've got one other that I'm doing a short video with some new material on spring poles, a little bit more presentation on that. So those are some things I'm working on. Hopefully you'll be able to catch those on the Tim Ard channel coming up in this next few days. I've got 2 or 3 of them. One's airing in the morning, another one will be Saturday morning, and then hopefully have the other spring pole video ready to go too. But I hope everybody had taken the time to look over the pole saw workshop video. I didn't really hear any comments of change back. I've had a lot of good comments and people saying that they thought it was very, very useful. But I am open to knowing any other edges, I guess you'd say, or topics of the pole saw that we can put together. I get a lot of questions about those in the field, especially with a lot of the cities and towns and the state business. They take and try to put as many pole saws out as they can to kind of get away from the chainsaw side of it. But the techniques are pretty much the same, a little bit different tool to handle. It can be quite stressful on the back and legs and arms and necks, but it is something that gives you a little bit of reach away from some storm situations. So that's some things that have worked out pretty good, I think, for a lot of the towns in the city and state. So looking good. Hello, John M. I see you're on. Hope you're doing well. We're kind of just sitting around waiting on questions and stuff. So if you have any questions about anything, let us know. If we can't answer them tonight, we'll try to get an answer out for you. Hopefully the internet is doing good. I got the SpaceLink all in and installed and kind of got everything tuned in. I think I had it a little bit off last week, but this week I think it's uploading pretty well. So hopefully we've got a fairly decent stream there. So looking for that thing to get wound up a little bit better in the near future. John, you were using a pole saw and a dead ash tree today. So working with them out of the bucket. I assume you're out of a bucket. Up with the wires. But use a gas powered out of the bucket, or do you have a hydraulic unit on the truck? Oh, climbing with the pole saw. Well, that's makes it interesting. It does give you a little bit of reach, so you don't have to move around quite as much. Isn't that true? But that's a lot to move around there. But a gas HT131. That's 131 is a 10-foot pole, 13-foot pole. You definitely have some reach on that one, I think. I 12-foot pole, yeah. I was talking about it last week a little bit. The HTA. I got the battery powered steel unit, the 135 HTA 135. It's a 13-foot pole, and it's pretty well balanced. But I don't know. You get into those that size. I've picked up the HT 131, but I haven't really used one all that much. I've got a smaller Husqvarna unit that I've used over the years, and fully extended, you can get up about 10 feet with it and holding it up pretty high, but it gets with your back pretty quick. But the the HTA, the battery powered unit, balances out pretty well, but there's still a few pounds to hold on to. But as far as the weight compared to the gas, I don't know exactly what the specs were. I looked at both of them. The gas unit seemed to be a little bit heavier in the same size shaft. So, but I've been quite impressed with the power on it. I actually I changed it over. I put a 14-inch the Oregon the well, it's the I'm sitting there drawing a blank tonight, but it's a Oregon Power Sharp, and I put it on there, and just to see how it would pull the long bar, and it did so well I kind of left it on there. You know that system, you can be able to clamp on the end, and the chain is a little bit rough for pruning. It cuts kind of a pretty ragged kerf, but it cuts very fast, and as you sharpen it back, it sharpens down from the top of the tooth. It's like the old, we used to call it Barracuda or the Auto Sharp chain, but they call it Power Sharp, has a clamp on the end on it, and once you file it down or grind it down a little bit, it gets a little bit smoother, but with a full size tooth on it, it grabs a little bit. But that battery unit pulled it really nice, and I did a lot of shooting for the video back a couple weeks ago, and I mean I ran the thing pretty hard most of the about 2/3 of the day at least, and I still had some battery left, so it gets pretty good life on it. So, but that chain is actually what I've got on the Power Sharp is just a standard 3/8 50 gauge. But the tooth is different. It's not a standard style cutter. It sharpens from the top down, and so it's a funky looking tooth. You can look at it on the Oregon site under Power Sharp, but it's a sharpening system that goes on. You've probably seen those clamp on the end of the bar, and you push on the end of it, and that sharpens the chain. So but it does pretty good. But anyhow, I've run it a little bit with the 10-inch bar on there with the Pico, the 3/8 in the .043 gauge, and that's a very narrow kerf, and the saw actually balances out, I think, a little bit better with that shorter bar. And so if I was, really doing a lot of pruning and stuff, or real accurate, that'd be the way to go for sure. I guess you've got the 3/8 043 on yours. I have run into some situations with the cities and towns. They've got some of the older steel units with the 50 gauge bars on there, and they put the new 043 gauge on there, and they basically end up with a pole saw swing that gets halfway through a decent sized limb and it locks up. But it's just because just like a chainsaw will do the same thing with the kerf. So, but they don't understand matching up the gauges on it. But and then some of the new ones that they've had with some of the large ones, they're using the 325 pitch in the 043, and it seems to be cutting pretty good. At .043, I thought might be a little bit weak, but I guess the hardenings on the metals nowadays are much stronger. I haven't seen any of them that are bent or causing any problems. So, but it's going pretty good. And also, I was interested if anyone has seen and gotten any good information off of the Hexa chain slow motion film that I did. I had that idea to kind of do a slow motion thing. Didn't quite show as well as I wanted to. I couldn't get the chain speed to slow down quite enough. It did slow down a good bit, but It's still turning faster than the one I saw. It must have been in I don't know, 84, 85, somewhere through there. Steel had produced a slow motion video of a chain going through about the reactive forces, a kickback showing that, and it was quite amazing how they could show the slow motion of the chain and how it would go into the test board. And so I tried to get that same effect, but it didn't quite slow down quite enough. But it's still pretty good. And I was quite amazed at how smooth it was with the chain turning on the bore cut. I would just, if you look at the video, I just bored right on the edge of the end of the log, and I used one sweet gum and then also a red oak that had been dried since early spring or January. And basically you could see how the tip would go into it, and then how the chips would be cleared there too. And it's quite amazing to see how the cutter tooth comes away from the bar, so that you can see how it kind of rocks back and starts to cut, and it looks like an airspace between the top of the chain and the actual bar rail. So it's quite interesting to watch it under slow motion. But a local dealer has the Hexa loops in, I think, in 20 and 24, and I think maybe 32 or 28 also, but hasn't gotten the files in. I'm kind of waiting. Hopefully gets those in pretty quick, and I've got several other videos that I want to run on the Hexa chain. But my file that I have is completely worn out. So the chain's still cutting good, still running sharp. I haven't used all that much since I did sharpen it, and it's cutting pretty good. That's the same one that I used in the video, so it's got some time on it. It's back to about, I guess, about 30% of the tooth is left. It's a little bit back past half, but it's still in pretty good shape to cut. I had the one video that I put up on working with lean. I did a podcast on it too. I don't know if everybody has had a chance yet, but Along the Four Steps Road podcast, I've got those out on Anchor, and then it goes to Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and also Apple Podcasts. And I've got quite a number on there. I'm going through our ebook, which is the complete guide to chainsaw safety and directional felling, and it's been quite a trip for me going back through it. I wrote the book in about 2002 with help from Mike Boland, who is the forester for Illinois. He retired now. He's out in Fresno, California. But Mike kind of did most of the rewrite for me, so my English was actually understandable, and so we worked a lot on that book, and published it in 2002 off the website, and then it's also available on the ebook series from Barnes & Noble, so you can download it from there also. I've also had it in a printed manual, but I've never really done anything audio on it. So I started off going chapter by chapter, reading through the ebook, and I guess it was week before last I posted the one on the RDT system and the professional side of it. And I forgot that I'd done a lot of research and work on that to put together how to reduce your downtime in a commercial business, logging or tree care. Looking at really doing some tracking of what kind of time goes on the piece of equipment, when by tanks of fuel and those kinds of things. I did it several logging operations over the years, and then we pinpointed different wear areas, set up the intervals for the different maintenance and cleanings, sharpening systems for rotating saw chain and guide bars, and it really worked out. Matter of fact, I could pick up one full chain life with the rotation system on a rotation of 3 chains, and you could end up also with extending the bar wear life and filters and all those types of things on rotation systems. And I had forgotten, used to talk about that quite a lot. So it's pretty neat chapter in the book. But if you get a chance to tune in on that, I listen to a lot of podcasts, people like Mike Rowe and those kinds, with people that work with their hands and do good things. And so I listen to a lot of those, and some of the electronics, different podcast series. I enjoy listening to that. And it's quite neat when you can take it on your phone or whatever, and they're free. They don't cost anything, and you can subscribe to them and more or less while you're driving or working. If you've got earbuds, you can be able to listen, and it works under your earmuffs and all kinds of things. So it's pretty neat to be able to listen through a lot of the different podcasts, learn a lot of stuff. So we started that back a few weeks ago, and I think we're up to first section of chapter 7 now. So it's moving along. I've got just going chapter by chapter, and I've got I looked the other day to see exactly what we had in there, but it's only back to 20 chapters, so I'm on chapter 7 going through. It's about 258 pages or something like that. So with my reading skills, it takes a little bit of time, but that's it's going through it shortly, so it works pretty good. Everything. One thing I was going to mention, I had a couple of not emails, but messages back this week on some of the things of the pulled fiber, and that's what I was getting to before I started rambling. I took that lean video and then kind of shortened it up a good bit into limiting splits and pulls, and so in that case. I have a lot of people who kind of take and a lot of the videos and in the field working with the guys. I have a lot of folks that have never ever used a bore cut, and they've really not thought a lot about the relationship with the notch and the hinge, and so. When you start to look at setting it up, no matter what size tree it is, and the one in the video that I was discussing, that has to do with they were going to use it for lumber, and it's a pretty good size tree. And so trying to reach through and cut the whole tree, it's very hard to outchase its movement, outcut its movement. And so in those bigger ones like that, sometimes if I don't want to bore cut it for whatever reason, is to cut half of it from the underlean side and then come up to what we call the good side and finish the other side. So if I've got a 40-inch tree, I'm only really cutting 2 20-inch trees, and so with a 20-inch bar, you're able to take it on both sides, not having to reach around and try to get your hinge right in the middle. because the fiber, you know, as the tree starts to move, breaks from the back to your face notch. So that's your hinged material in there. And so if you don't have it set up thin enough so that it can actually bend over to break, you end up with it pulling fibers out. And that's what splits the butt logs and ends up with a lot of pulled fibers and shatters and splits. And so, you know, thinking through those mechanics of the notch, and like on this picture, I've got a about a 70 to 80 degree opening as far as the face notch. We call the open face 70 degrees or more, and that allows that tree to go pretty much all the way over to the ground before the hinge is actually broken loose by the closing of the notch. And then you know, when you start to think about too, people talk about stump shot and those kinds of things, but really you can see the face notch in this case, it's over to probably about a 30-40 degree position, and it's still open. And then as that notch, whatever you have, closes, like this one with a stump shot, it has to break apart to be able to go over. And you know, people don't realize how the stresses on those fibers end up you know, pulling and tearing. In other words, when the face notch closes or it has to split apart, those fibers start pulling out of the stump or out of the log. And so you try to keep those resistance as low as possible to be able to keep the quality in control, as well as the log and the fiber. So that's kind of some things that I've got in that particular video. And I've even got you know, a couple small pieces that I did with a handsaw that you can see what I'm talking about there. And then this same stuff, you know, it plays into horizontal stuff. You know, if you've got trees that are down after storms, or you felled a tree, bucking up limbs and logs, you've got to also consider the same things. Had a discussion with the folks this week in the class. People don't think, you know, most of the time when I talk to people about training, they say, well, we don't fell that many trees. We cut a lot of stuff up or remove them from the top down, or we you know, working out of a bucket or climbing, or we take and end up you know, just working on stuff that's horizontal and down, trying to clear a road or whatever. We don't really spend a whole lot of time felling trees. But what I was trying to explain to them this week is, you know, if you've got an oak tree, pretty good size oak tree or whatever species, and it's down across the road or whatever, or you've felled the tree and now you're going to limb and bucket, is that if you've got a limb that's at the, you know, trunk of the tree that's 10 inches and it's, you know, 15 feet long, tall, that's the same thing as felling a tree. So, you know, that's what happens in a lot of storm cleanup situations where people get hurt, is somebody's cutting limbs and somebody's too close and something falls on the person, or it ends up twisting over and catching the saw. Now somebody's stuck with the saw in there in a pretty critical situation. So, I mean, it's something where people don't realize that's felling a tree. That would be the same thing as something that's, you know, 10 inches coming out of the ground. And most of the has been for years, most of the fatalities in tree work has come from 8-inch wood and down. It's not the big stuff that usually causes most of the injuries. Now, a lot of those are struck bys coming out of the top, or it's smaller trees that aren't being utilized, and you end up with them more or less. At that time, they didn't go to market with them because there wasn't much money in it, so they just kind of slashed it, and it just laid there. Next thing you know, it rolls out, or the wind blows it out and hits somebody on the crew. So it's important to think about the small stuff is also very dangerous. So you have to keep that in mind. And then the other thing with small small stuff is hangers, and I've worked quite a lot with that over the years with dead wood as well as green stuff after storms. It's uprooted and over against the trees, and so it's so important to have a plan to be able to take those down. And notches and hinges work the same way on that. So many times I see people go up to them and try to slash them off, or if you do use some type of tagline to it, you might want to use an offset cut, or what a lot of people call snap cut, to be able to have it stand there and then back up from it and be able to use a tagline to be able to pull it or push it. But you have no control of that side to side, back and forward. Using notches and hinges, it gives you the ability to control that to where you want it to go. And so it makes it a much safer operation to be able to work with. And I just put together the video on that today and got it posting. And it covers some. I did up in Massachusetts. I had one pretty large ash tree that had ended up uprooted and up against another pine tree up a bank, and it's about I think it was 16, 18 inches, something like that, DBH. And you can kind of see it. That technique works on big ones, and then I've also got a small 5-incher on there, so you can kind of see how the techniques work. Planting process is the same as we have with a horizontal tree. Is thinking through, can it move side to side? Can it go up or down? Is there back pressure? All of those we take into consideration. So John, you say you often use a Humboldt to flatland spars in urban settings. Any thoughts or recommendations? A Humboldt cut is a great technique. You know, when you think about it, a Humboldt can be an open face. That's really the key, is to have it open enough till the tree gets to about a 70-degree position. And neat thing about Humboldt is that usually, especially with longer trees, it kind of locks onto the stump a little bit better. But then when the hinge lets go, it slides down, the butt hits, and then the top. And so from logging standpoint, over the years, it would keep you from shattering a lot of tops. Well, open face does that too, but when you get in certain area markets for the timber, when you start talking with the mills, then basically the situation there is that they scale the log, and they scale it from the top of the notch. So if you use a common or Humboldt notch, they try to deduct from that, but in reality, from the standpoint of the open face, it's a shallower notch usually than the common or the Humboldt. Humboldt's usually taken into a third to a half of the tree, and whereas the open face is kept out on the outer, usually 20% of the diameter, and so it makes it allow the hinge to work, either one, the Humboldt or the open face. But the key there is the opening. If you were to put a flat cut in and then take a 30-degree pie out, you're going to get pulled fiber. If you're dropping a spar or something, you've got control that way. There's no doubt. But if you've got bad wood, or you've got situations of lean on that, you got to consider the opening, because let's say you got a 20-foot spar there that you've got. Let's say it's 2 foot in diameter, whatever, 24 inches, not that big a one, but just for communication purposes here. If it leans back, say 3 feet, if you think about that position leaning back, say 10 degrees or something, that notch, you got to have it open enough to be able to go over past that balance point, your fulcrum being the balance, your hinge being the balance. And so that's the key there. A lot of times people lose cutting the statue or the spar down. They got a tagline in it or whatever as you work the tree down, and then the face notch they put in is just a very shallow face, not shallow, but not open very much. And if you got something with any lean on it, you pull it a little bit, and unless you just get lucky, it won't continue in the direction you want it to go. It just tips till the face notch closes. And so it doesn't really make any difference whether it's a Humboldt or a open face in that case. And so it's something where the opening is the key there. But I find myself, and I've done a considerable amount of both. Humboldt is something you have to kind of get used to and practice to be able to match things up without a Dutchman, without a bypass on it. When you do the open face, it gives you the ability to take and cut down from the top. You can look into that top cut to make the bottom cut meet, and that gives you the ability to really cut down the chances of having a stump shot, not a stump shot, but a Dutchman or a bypass in that area that's going to cause resistance on the hinge when it starts to move. So that to me is the biggest reason that I think that an open face a little easier. A lot of times the history on the Humboldt, most of the western trees, kind of grow up on a little bit of mounds, and so the bigger ones you always were able to kind of come into it flat and then see the bottom. But smaller diameter trees, you got to get down on your knees and crawl in there to see what you got as far as the back corner of the notch. And I've watched a lot of folks over the years, and you can be very good at it, there's no doubt. But the open face, doing the top and then the bottom cut, it gives you the ability to line it up very quickly and very easily. And so, and the saws in most cases are really set up for that also. If you went to the wrap style handles on the larger saws out west, I mean those are set up for the Humboldt cut, so the positions and the angles, and so that's it's quite interesting, and people don't realize how the saw actually is set up to do a lot of the work for you. So it's got the angles and the handles that you need to be able to maintain control for that particular notch and back cuts. But the biggest thing when you're taking down a spar, or I guess what you're talking about is what I call a statue. It's the trunk that's left after you've removed all the top and many sections to get it down. And a lot of injuries still happen with loss of control of those, and property as well as people. So it's important that you have control with those things as you're dropping them, just like you would with a complete tree. Well, I don't know what we missed and what we did. And looks like I looked over there and the stream had ended, so I don't know. I don't know what happened on that deal. John, I don't know if you caught all my answers or not, but I will post after a while. I will post the recording that I have on my end of it. So hopefully that will pick it up. You can watch it later. But I don't know what happened, but it looks like I got bumped off there for some reason. Does anybody have a signal now? What's happened? Well, anyhow, I'll go ahead and get things kind of wrapped up here, and been on for about 45 minutes or so. So, I just if you have any comments or questions, you can send them to info@forestapps.com, and be glad to get the answers back to you. And also working on several other video ideas. If you have any other training ideas that you'd like me to spend some time on, and I also can reference from other people too, put things together. So hopefully we can keep chainsaw instruction going on out there in different ways. And like I say, we'll be up in Ohio next week, and the following week in Kentucky. We'll be doing some videos on that. And I've got 4 or 5 videos that I've put together that will be coming out in the next few days. So we're staying busy with it. Hope all is good. Hi, Logger Jake. See you came on. Your internet's goofy. This internet is, I don't know. I got the base link and I had perfect thing. Then all of a sudden now the data is going. I think that we've got a few thunderstorms and stuff out there. So just passing through a little bit. But it says excellent connection. But then all of a sudden it just stops. I don't know what the deal is there. What area are you in, Logger Jake? Hard to say. Hard to say. But anyhow, working on several things, and hopefully the hexa chains and files will start to make it into your areas. I've had a lot of questions about those, and so we're trying to stay in there. Wayne County, northeast area of Pennsylvania. We were was up outside of Philadelphia just a few weeks ago working. Had some with the Delaware Valley Trust, just northwest, I guess, of Philadelphia. Well, thank you, Jake. Appreciate that. The sharpening videos I really enjoy doing, and plan to do a few more. I'm gonna get back and do some. I've had a couple things on the chainsaws on the reduced downtime program, which will include some sharpening. I want to put together some things on the bar and chain rotation system, and also a little bit more on how the depth gauges work. So got that working in my notes to do. So just looking for the time to get the videos and stuff put together. But anyhow, been on a little bit over an hour total, so I'm gonna kind of back off here tonight and try to get this other video kind of put together. I don't know why it bumped me off there, but we'll get it set. But appreciate everybody dropping by tonight. Hopefully you've picked up something, and we hope to see you out on along the Forest Apps Road at some point in time. We're in Kentucky a week after next. I'll be up that way. But it hopefully will end up with you having a good sawing experience. So good sawing to you. We're going to check out of here, and we'll talk to y'all later. Thanks.